So simple interest formulas. This is 10.2 if you want to look at it in your book, and we're going to make a journal entry. Remember, put your name here. And a description of the simple interest formula would be a chunk of money deposited for a certain length of time. Interest is calculated one time, and you get a larger at the end, a larger chunk at the end. So we're starting with a big chunk of money, we put it into an account, and it gains interest one time. It's calculated one time at the end of the time when you're depositing, and then you get out a little bit larger chunk than you put in. Good deal. Okay, so we have a formula for it. It is F equals P times 1 plus RT. Now, F stands for future value. P stands for present value. Little r stands for the rate. And just like before, we want that as a decimal. And T, I need just one more line here. T stands for time. Generally in years. Okay, so when we have problems like this, we need to know 3 of the 4 variables so we can solve for the other variable. And you might notice that this formula is very similar to our percent increase formula. So it's a very similar kind of concept. Keywords that are going to tell you that you need to use this formula and not one of the other formulas. This, you might see words like simple interest, and you may see, I wouldn't count on these to tell you what kind of interest, but you might see like a savings bond that is generally using simple interest. So I'll put generally, but you have to look and make sure. And then steps or notes, you're just going to plug in values that you know from the problem. And I'll show you an example right here. We have 2 examples. And then now on number 2, it says, how can you figure out how much money you will have in your account after 1 year if the account uses simple interest? And there's the formula that you can use for simple interest, and yields 0.37 APR, percent APR. You start the year with 5,000. So we want to know how much we have at the end of that time. Number 1 is actually telling us that we want to end up with $4,000 after we do our investment. So we're going to start with probably a smaller chunk, slightly smaller, gain some interest on it, and be able to take out $4,000 at the end of the time. So I do want to demonstrate this one for you so that we can see it, because it's sort of backwards from the usual way of going. So we'll write down the formula first. F equals P times the quantity 1 plus RT. And my F, my future value, is going to be $4,000. My P, the big P, I don't know. My R, little r, is going to be 4.89%. And I have to convert that to a decimal, so 0.0489. Just move my decimal 2 places to the left. And then I need to know the T, and it does say in 3 years. So I need t equals 3. So I'll plug all those in. So I will have 4,000 equals big P times the quantity 1 plus little r 0.0489 times t, which is 3. And now I want to calculate that. So I'm going to start by just typing this multiplication from inside the parentheses, because that'll be first by the order of operations. So I'm doing 0.0489 times 3 equals, and I get 0.1467. When I add 1 to it, it's just going to be 1.1467, so I'll just do plus 1 equals. And then I have P times that quantity equals 4,000. And then I want to go ahead and divide both sides by that 1.1467. So I can store that in variable A if I want to, or I can, since it terminates, I can just write it down and retype it. That's not a problem. And then I want to do 4,000 divided by, and I'm going to do recall from A, or type in the 1.1467 and then enter. And so that's me doing this 1.1467, and I have P equals 3488.27, and the next digit is a 0, so I'm going to leave it as a 7 for the pennies. And so my dollar value that I need to invest in order to have 4,000 at the end of the 3 years is going to be $3,488.27. Let me put a comma there too.